So going back to the very beginning, I understand that your mother played a big influence in your becoming a musician.
Yes. Well, as it turned out, both my mother and my grandmother played the piano. Mm-hmm. So as a child, there was always a piano, it seemed like, wherever I was. In fact, my grandmother, I found out just recently, actually taught my grandfather how to play the piano. Oh. But my mom would play. She still does. And she played kind of music that she liked from the 40s, and I always thought it was kind of corny. But once in a while, she would play some boogie woogie. Really, so as a small kid, I went, wow, that's the kind of music I want to play. So yeah, she definitely had. She got me excited about the piano at an early age.
Yeah, and then you grew up listening to jazz and the Beatles.
Yes. Yeah. Well, my mom was a big fan of Ray Charles and Frank Sinatra, Nat King Cole. So we heard a lot of that music growing up. And then, of course, by the time I was a teenager, the Beatles became this huge phenomenon. And like many musicians, especially from my generation, we really we wanted to be in the band, right? We wanted to be a Beatle, and so they were very influential to me as a young musician, and luckily so. I mean, I can't think of a greater group of songwriters to be so influential. So I learned quite a bit from playing and studying their music.
Yeah, and you actually did join a band, didn't you?
Oh, I've been in quite a few bands. Yeah,
a progressive rock band.
Yes,
called Brahman.
Brahman. Well, after being in quite a few, like what we call garage bands, I was asked to join this group of very elite studio musicians up in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and this was back 1970, 1971. It was a very progressive, which means the songs were very long and very complicated. And but we were very lucky. We got a recording contract right away with Mercury Records, and made one album, stayed together for maybe about a year, and then there were so many different directions in the band that eventually it just kind of pulled apart, and we were getting ready to do a second album, and unfortunately the group disbanded.
You play the keyboards?
Yes, we had two keyboard players in that group. And to show you the error, we had 7 people in the band, and one of them was a mimist, like Marcel Marceau. So when we did our live shows, the mimist would be out front doing all these interpretations of the music. A little different, but yes. And but that was Brahman. It was a fun time because I was the youngest musician in the band. But yet I felt really at home with these musicians. They were just really, really great.
So from jazz, the Beatles, and progressive rock to what's now called New Age.
Right.
Back then it didn't have a name.
It did. In fact, in 1971, if you can get a copy of that album, it's been out of print for quite a while, there is a section on one of the songs that I wrote where they just let me play solo piano. And it sounds like very early New Age music, even back in 1971, even though the term New Age wasn't attached to music until probably the mid-'80s is when they kind of started to market music with that term. So
how'd you go in that direction? Or do you think that direction was always there?
It was kind of always there, because as a child, I remember, I did take some piano instruction, and my piano teachers always told my parents, they said, well, your son isn't very technically gifted, but I said he has a very strong emotional gift. So they ended up having me play a lot of sad Russian music, and so I always liked that very melodic kind of kind of introspective. So in between playing in rock bands, and when I'd kind of be off on my own, I'd start to do this little kind of light, pretty kind of music. I never thought anyone wanted to hear that. I always thought it wanted to be kind of, had to be rock and roll and had to be kind of edgy, and so really that part of my musical soul was really alive at an early age. So it really wasn't that hard for me to make the leap from this one style of music. And what really happened was, I just asked myself one day the question, what does the world need from me as a musician, as an artist? And I kind of wanted to be a jazz piano player, and I kind of wanted to do more singer-songwriter things, and I had all these different ideas, but immediately the answer came back was, the world needs to be healed.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. I'm not going to be a doctor or anything. But then I realized that this style of music that I played really had an effect on people. And here we are today.
Yeah,
So,
and it kind of took off because, as I said, the world needed
yes,
healing.
it still does. You know,
Yeah.
the world, let's face it, is a very stressful place. So